Hi, my name is Steve Holden. I am running for the New York 24th Congressional District, and this is my democracy gauntlet. I support the idea of being able to vote online. We're now here in the 21st century. We should be able to go with the advancements of technology, much like we have in the past. Paper ballots, whereas they have been secure in previous elections, are going to be a thing of the past here coming up pretty soon. However, if we allow voting online with certain securities and certain encryptions and certain protections that need to be within our national cybersecurity framework, online voting can be the most secure of all, especially if we continue to have medical issues such as the pandemic going forward. To protect voting rights, what I would first do is make it illegal to do gerrymandering. In such ideas that are in the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Some of those ideas would be, one, allowing same-day registration. As mobile as our society is, this often takes out certain disadvantaged communities, students, and older voters and disenfranchising them. Another thing I would look to is eliminate gerrymandering and create nonpartisan commissions to go throughout the country and create congressional districts. Because we do have rampant gerrymandering, the other thing I would do is require any sort of changes to be certified by Congress. Okay, if there are any sort of disputes that happen. I would also make the Federal Election Commission an actual odd-numbered organization. Currently, there are 6. I would make that 7 and actually give them enforcement mechanisms to go after any sort of voting irregularities across the country. As well as I would allow voter registration while getting your driver's license or any sort of state ID or state assistance. Again, we're in the 21st century. We need to update this from 20th century ideas or even earlier than that. The other thing that we would look to do is also allow the Department of Justice to go after any sort of irregularities, such as what we see in Georgia, Texas, Florida, Arizona, and other states around the country that are disenfranchising voters across the board. If you pay taxes, you should be able to vote, period. There's a contribution to our society. When it has to do with voting rights, I support a number of these particular voting rights changes. Number one, I support same-day voting registration. We have a highly mobile society, and we need the ability for people to actually get out, go to a polling booth, and register to vote. Okay, it needs to be more mobile than it is. Second is that I would empower the Department of Justice to go over any sort of voter suppression ideas and plans across the country, such as the ones in the states of Georgia, Florida, Texas, Arizona, and other places of the such. I would support automatic registration as well. Okay, if we can't get same day, well, then let's do automatic voter registration. When you are issued a Social Security card, automatically on the day of your 18th birthday, you are automatically added to the rolls and you are contacted to see which party or no party that you wish to align. The next thing I would like to do is take care of give greater access to early voting. We expand the periods of time that you can have for federal elections. Now, this will trickle down to state and local elections well, because many state and local voting agencies will want to do that on the same day for the sole purpose that they don't have the resources to hold multiple elections. So they're going to do that they're going to probably do that all at once, right? The next thing I want to do is have Election Day as a national holiday. If people aren't for that, then let's do elections on a weekend, on a Saturday. Oftentimes people don't have the ability to get out and get to the polls, especially if they work, they have children, right? They may have medical issues or other things that make it harder for them to be able to get out. If you would have Election Day as a national holiday, you could guarantee that. Again, If not, let's do it on a weekend. The next thing I would take a look at, not a whole lot of people understand, are voting assistance officers in the military. Under the Trump administration, they were large in part defunded. Why? Because in the military community, particularly in the enlisted ranks, there are large numbers of minority voters who are out there. We need to get these voting assistance officers back so they can better help our men and women in uniform be able to cast their ballots. I support ranked choice voting for the simple reason that I believe it's going to expand democracy. The largest growing number of voters by registration in this country are non-affiliated. A number of those are really people who belong to maybe other parties, but they feel as if that they have no other choice than besides the two major parties. If this does, then what they can do is allow for more parties to be created and allow more candidates to come in, so where voters actually might have a choice closer to their ideological perspective or a candidate that they simply prefer better. In the ranked choice model, you would have your slate of voters and you would simply go down the list. And they would come through certain rounds until you got to the final two, and whoever had the most would win by that point. It's done in places like Maine, and it's now going to be done in a place like Alaska, where you do have a number of independent voters who get out, or ones who are affiliated with other parties. So yes, I do support ranked choice voting as a concept, and I believe that it would expand the franchise and open our elections up to a greater diversity of candidates, choices, and better service for the public. I would help freedom of the press and whistleblower rights by strengthening our shield laws, which allow for journalists to be able to protect their sources. Across the country, we see agencies that are, and governments, I should say, that are trying to curtail the rights of the press, whistleblowers, and of protesters as well. In the cases of Julian Assange, Chelsea Manning, Edward Snowden, what we should be able to is allow for non-attribution, which means that if you come forward and it's verifiable, then we should not be able to come back and take retribution against whistleblowers such as those individuals. What they are doing is a service to the community, and as someone myself who's in the military who had a security clearance can tell you, the first thing that you have is a duty to the Constitution of the United States and the freedom of the press. And the public has the right to know if there are things going on which violate the Constitution and the public trust. Those things should supersede classification levels or other protections given to the national security apparatus of the United States. In those cases, I would not seek any sort of prosecution of those individuals, and in fact vindicate them from any sort of prosecution and create shield laws for them to be able to come forward. That is how I would secure the freedom of the press and for whistleblowers going forward. My ideas on election reform, first of all, start with overturning Citizens United, creating public law that takes dark money and big money out of politics. The next thing I would support is a voucher system that would allow voters to give their support or money through a form of public financing to candidates of their choice. It's also an easy predictor of who actually is getting the popular support on the ground. We need to rein in the election industry, which requires candidates spend most of their time fundraising instead of being out talking to voters. This voter voucher idea is something that was given to me by a supporter, a donor, as an idea to replace the current system and update public financing. So those are two of the ideas I would have to get big money out of politics, to get dark money out of politics. Furthermore, until then, I would tighten the rules on foreign involvement in our campaigns and strengthen our punishment system for going after those said individuals who are funneling dark money. So those are some of my ideas about public financing of campaigns and the way until we get there to be able to ensure that we limit the amount of dark money that is coming in. I support the elimination of the Electoral College. The Electoral College was originally an idea put forth to help Southern slave owners be able to strengthen their power over the government because it limited the voting and voting rights of enslaved individuals and Native Americans across particularly the southern tier of the country, the country writ large. We need to eliminate the Electoral College and go to a direct voting model. One person, one vote. This would require presidential candidates to actually go out and talk to voters in places that they would never go. It would require them to go to both quote unquote red states and blue states, not just swing states. Okay, it would expand the exposure that presidential candidates would have and have them more forceful and accountable to every voter across the country. Even in such a blue state here in New York, we would have presidential candidates coming here talking to areas where that are just pretty split, like our congressional district, and they would have engagement with those people who want to be our commander in chief. So I would support the elimination of the Electoral College by a constitutional amendment in order to secure the idea of one person, one vote.